In Western horror fiction, the idea of a slasher, a mysterious serial killer who stalks victims with a bladed weapon, arguably goes back to the tales inspired by Jack the Ripper, such as The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. More obviously, however, slasher horror has been defined in cinema, beginning in 1960 with Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and then exploding in popularity in 1979 with the release of John Carpenter's Halloween. Indeed, in Red Letter Media's audio commentary on Halloween, film critic Jay Bauman speculates that Halloween might be the most ripped-off film in all of cinematic history. It boasts literally hundreds of knockoffs and imitators. We can think of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Sleepaway Camp, The Hills Have Eyes, Phantasm, Maniac, Madman, Madhouse, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Pieces, Night of the Demons, Happy Birthday to Me, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and so on. I mean, look at all these. So when it comes to horror fiction, I think 80s style slasher horror is one of the most prolific and well-represented subgenres. And yet, despite mentioning slasher horror as a subgenre in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, we don't actually get a Domain of Dread which focuses on 1980s style slasher horror. That's a shame, but never worry, I've written one up for us and an adventure to accompany it. Welcome to PhD&D everyone, I'm Dr. Bowers, and today we're going to talk about Camp Silver Lake, a domain of my own creation, which you can pick up on the DM's Guild for just $2. Link in the doobly-doo. As with the rest of my Ravenloft videos, I'm going to cover what the domain is, list some media that'll help us get an imaginative grip on the domain and the adventure, and then sketch out the adventure. In our case, the adventure is a highly lethal, replayable, item-focused one-shot, where players are likely to grind through several level 1 PCs, and maybe a level 5 PC as well. What is Camp Silver Lake? Well, at first, Camp Silver Lake appears to be an abandoned summer camp in a pine forest clearing, consisting in 8 lakeside log cabins gathered around a fire pit near a rustic horse barn. But deep in the pine forest, sharpening his machete and stitching new flesh to his ghoulish face mask, the serial killer known as Yannick broods in his rancid hut. He immediately knows when someone enters the camp, and although he cannot tell their exact whereabouts at first, he will hunt down the intruders, slaying them with his blade. Now, as I mentioned, Camp Silver Lake is based around 80s-style slasher horror movies, and in particular, the most famous ripoff of John Carpenter's Halloween. I'm talking about the Friday the 13th franchise. Now, there are a lot of Friday the 13th movies which vary wildly in their quality, so I'm going to go ahead and recommend Friday the 13th Part 4, The Final Chapter, as the best representative of the series. That's right, it's called Part 4, The Final Chapter, even though there's a half-dozen sequels that come after it. Part 4, The Final Chapter, features many of the famous tropes that define the Friday the 13th series, as well as Jason Voorhees as an antagonist. For one thing, it's actually Jason rather than his mom or an angry neighbor. Jason is actually undead rather than being a space alien or just a guy. He's got his hockey mask instead of just a hood over his head. And he's slaying kids at a summer camp. Classic Jason. We also get introduced to the character of Tommy Jarvis, who over the series came closer than anyone else to being Jason's main enemy. The 1983 film Sleepaway Camp also deserves some mention. However, like Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film Psycho, there are a couple of elements which haven't aged very well. Still, it's one of the classic summer camp slasher films of the 80s. I also recommend the 2015 film The Final Girls, which pays loving tribute to this subgenre of summer camp slasher 80s horror films, both embellishing and lampshading its most well-known tropes. And finally, to get the feel of our adventure, it's worth mentioning 3 different video games. First, 2015's Lakeview Cabin Collection, especially Lakeview Cabin 3. This game presents players with a highly lethal, item-focused puzzle of how to anticipate the arrival of a masked serial killer at an abandoned summer camp, and how to defeat them with various items. There's also 2016's Dead by Daylight and 2017's Friday the 13th: The Game. In each of these releases, players must navigate a campsite, scouring the environment for items they can use as tools, both to defend themselves from and escape from a serial killer who stalks them and who overpowers them physically. The mechanics here, on the player's side at least, focus on hiding, sneaking, searching, using items, high lethality, and replayability, and we're going to incorporate all of those into our Camp Silver Lake adventure. Speaking of which, our adventure is a replayable one-shot with a unique level range. Each PC should be level 1, but in addition, every player should have a few backup PCs in case their main PC dies. In fact, it's almost certain that their main PC will die. Those backup PCs can show up wherever the original PC showed up at the adventure's beginning, and simply pick up where the old PCs left off. I'd say 1 backup PC minimum, 3 maximum. In addition to a few backup PCs of level 1, however, players should also have a backup PC of level 5, which they can call upon if they unlock a certain achievement in the adventure. Now, this adventure does not have distinct acts. Instead, it's just one act, one emergency scenario where Yannick is attempting to stalk and kill the PCs, as the PCs look for items that can either slow him down, kill him, open a portal to escape, or call for help. Our adventure begins with the PCs arriving in Camp Silver Lake, most likely because the Shadowfell mists of Ravenloft deposited them there, and they should see 8 single-story log cabins, each one 20 feet by 60 feet, encircling a central fire pit. There is a fire blazing in that pit, and it never stops, but the camp should otherwise seem to be abandoned. Shortly after arriving, the PC should hear a deranged, bestial yell coming from the woods, and they should immediately realize, as if by instinct, that something hunts them, something powerful. Now, once the adventure starts, you should roll for initiative, and this is important, you should stay in initiative the whole time. This does 2 things. First, staying in initiative helps maintain a tense atmosphere, and it puts some limitations on what your PCs can accomplish casually through description. Secondly, and more importantly, however, Yannick is always on the move in this adventure. He is always moving around trying to find the PCs and kill them, and it's important to make sure that his movements keep pace with the PC's movements. Initiative is the easiest way to do this. Now, I'm currently commissioning a map of Camp Silver Lake, but in the adventure, in the meantime, I have described everything's dimensions in a way which should make it easy to draw, like this. While the PCs start near the camp's center, close to the fire pit, Yannick will start out in his hideous cabin at the edge of the woods. He starts out prone, and his first act is to stand up and start heading towards the camp's center. He's not going to use the dash action until he's within 50 feet of the PCs. Until he's within 50 feet of them and sees them clearly, he's going to saunter and shamble like a ghoul. Now, if Yannick finds the PCs at the camp center, or if he finds even a single PC at the camp center, he's going to try to kill them. If he doesn't find any PCs at the camp center, however, Yannick will just start searching cabins one by one. He'll go into them and make perception checks, and if there are any PCs in the hiding spots in those cabins, the PCs can test their stealth checks against Yannick's perception checks to see if he notices them. Now, for the sake of replayability, each cabin has a randomly determined level of light, a randomly determined number of hiding spots of different natures, and also a random number of contents of various sorts in the drawers and in the closets. Although the cabin's contents are randomized, they do not replenish within any run of the adventure. Now, these items could include such things as a key to the horse barn, a flask of alchemist's fire that could hurt Yannick and scare him, a length of twine that could be used to trip Yannick if you set it up as a little tripwire, bone daggers that can be used once to escape Yannick's grapple attack, a writing kit that could be used to produce a note asking for help, an herb called Raven's Nip, which can be used to charm an otherwise irate bird, and skulls of Yannick's dead kin, 3 of which can open up a portal to safety if they're assembled in the horse barn. Again, the items are random. Which ones the PCs will find is going to be determined by die rolls on tables that are in the adventure, and each of these items, as I mentioned, have particular uses in the adventure that are also described. Now, in addition to the cabins, and the lake itself, which PCs should avoid due to Yannick's swimming speed, Camp Silver Lake has 3 locations of note: the horse barn, Yannick's hut, and the rookery. The horse barn can be unlocked with a key or just bashed open with an athletics check, and inside the PCs can find artifacts which Yannick fears and which grant powerful bonuses to anyone who wields them. Yannick's father's axe, for instance, grants a massive bonus to hit and to damaging Yannick. Yannick's father's boots add a movement bonus, and they also allow the wearer to cast a spell on Yannick, stunning him. And Yannick's father's cloak provides a massive AC bonus against Yannick. Like the contents of cabins, these artifacts can be found in the horse barn at random. Now, Yannick's hut, like the horse barn, also contains one of those artifacts that he fears and that can be used against him. But unlike the horse barn, it's not locked. Instead, PCs have to make a perception check in order to spot it in the woods. And finally, the rookery is a freestanding pole sporting a birdhouse near the edge of the lake in which lives a raven. This raven is immortal. If it dies, it soon regenerates and comes back to life, and Yannick cannot get rid of it, although he hates it. The raven is initially hostile towards the PCs, but not in the sense of attacking them. It's just uncooperative, can't be handled with an animal handling check, and will caw at them aggressively. Now, if PCs find a bit of Raven's Nip and give it to the raven will become friendly. And if the PCs give the friendly raven a note calling for help, then the raven will take off with it and notify some of the PC's allies who will then show up. If PCs make the raven friendly and then give it a note, in other words, players can introduce their level 5 PCs that they made up, in the event of the level 1 PC's deaths. Basically, they're calling out for help from the level 5 PCs who then show up. This may sound like a strange mechanic for a Ravenloft domain, but it actually makes sense. It's a way of cursing more and more people to show up to Camp Silver Lake and get killed by Yannick. It's a way for his curse to spread, as it were. Now, when it comes to running Yannick in battle, there are a few things worth remembering. First, Yannick will absolutely attack an unconscious PC and try to kill them. In fact, that's what he wants to do, and he will prioritize that. If he sees an unconscious PC, or if he renders a PC unconscious, he will keep going until that PC is dead. Now, as a counterbalance to that, Yannick does have a trait where after killing a PC, he will remain stunned for an entire round, just gazing at what he has done. During that time, PCs can flee, hide, regroup, or find some other plan of attack. Second, Yannick doesn't socialize, speak, respond to gestures, or anything like that. He can understand speech just fine, but he's not interested in it. He cannot be reasoned with. Third, just because he is silent, and just because he is pathologically aggressive and singularly minded, does not mean Yannick is stupid. There are certain items which can be used to trick him over and over again, but otherwise Yannick should have a sense of strategy. And on that note, fourth, use Yannick's abilities in a way that would be appropriate for a horror film. He has a couple uses of Misty Step, for instance. Make sure that you use that to suddenly appear in front of a fleeing PC. Or use the knock spell to bash down a door that the PCs thought that they had barricaded. Basically try to copy Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 4. Or from the Friday the 13th game. And finally, make sure that the environment seems frightening. One way you can do this is allow the PCs to find traces of Yannick's other victims. Bloodstains, scraps of clothing, claw marks on the floor revealing that Yannick must have violently dragged someone away. And to this effect, the adventure contains a little rhyme which PCs should find scrawled on the wall of some cabin. The rhyme says, "Keep away from Yannick, kid. He'll snatch you like a katydid, track you down and chop your head. Never resting till you're dead. The only thing to feel is panic when you're hunted by old Yannick." And that's a little homage to the movie Pumpkinhead. Just as Yannick's father's cloak and Yannick's father's this and that is an homage to the NES adaptation of Friday the 13th, with Jason's mother's sweater played an important role. Anyway, PCs win the adventure if they reduce Yannick to 0 hit points, in which case he dies and will be regenerated later, or if they assemble 3 skulls of Yannick's kin in the horse barn, at which point they will burst into flame, become flame skulls that protect the PCs from Yannick, and open up a portal to safety. In either case, the PCs are able to leave the accursed domain of Camp Silver Lake and go on to their next adventure, presumably leveling up after all of this. And that's our Camp Silver Lake adventure. What do you think? Is there anything you'd want to add to make it feel more like an 80s slasher horror film? And what do you think of the adventure's focus on items and on high lethality? Is that something you'd like to see in other adventures? And what do you think Yannick looks like under that hideous mask? Let me know in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and do all the other internet things. And as for the next video, we're gonna go somewhere poisonous. See you next time. Thanks.